senior insider for NBC Sports Bay Area, joining us. Ray, may I ask you about Draymond Green, or are you going to give me the Durant answer?
You can ask me whatever you like. This is your show. That's why your name's on it.
So what do you make of all of this, Ray? I mean, how concerned should a Warrior fan be with all this? Because is this the real deal? Is this the real inside implosion that tears dynasties asunder?
Yeah, they're done. These are the Suns now.
Nice.
Nice. It depends on how you want to define dynasty, because this is really not about this season. It's about the off season. Durant's not going anywhere until June. Green's not going anywhere until June. I think they are both smart enough to know that nobody benefits from them turning this into a poop show. It's, go out, win another ring, and then you can do whatever you want. So, I mean, basically, the narrative has been all along, let's fast forward through this tedious basketball and get to the real fun of finding out whether Durant wants to be a Knick or a Laker. I mean, it's almost like basketball has become sort of a byproduct of the real show, which is finding out where players are going to go get their next $40 million contract.
And in the meantime, basketball games get in the way, is what you're saying.
Well, it does now, because everybody, and I mean everybody, has already ceded the championship to Golden State, barring a catastrophic injury or set of injuries. So, I mean, all this has been about all year long has been, where's Durant going next year? What's Durant thinking about next year? It's like they can't wait to be done with the 2018-19 season. And it's 20 games in, not even. We already know what's going to happen next. Now we want to know what happens after next. It's a triumph of our cultural lack of patience.
I love it, right?
More than anything else. Just don't tell us what's about to happen. Give us 9 alternate universes for next season, and then the season after that. I mean, I find it bizarre. I find it hilarious.
Well, I'm part of it, Ray. I awarded
We're all part of it.
I awarded the Larry Francis.
guilty.
I awarded the Larry Francis O'Brien Trophy to them on what date was it again, Chris Brockman?
October 30th.
Yeah, so it's coming up on almost a month that I did that. My question.
You were late.
I was. But at some point, though, I guess everybody's going to have to realize that in order for the next contracts, before it happens, it would be better to have on your legacy sheet another championship. So where do you think Steve Kerr's role in all this is? Because he's the coach. He's the one that realizes that games need to be won before any free agency hits. What do you think here, Ray?
Well, I think everybody there realizes that. And that, when Draymond Green said this was a bump in the road, to a certain extent it was. But the Warriors are, they're every bit as guilty of looking past this season as anybody, because next year they go into a new building. And it's a new building across the bay. They've got to, basically take their fan base and then add to it, because a lot of people are going to drop off because they're not going to go across the bay and deal with the nightmares of traffic and higher prices and all that. They have to rebuild a fan base. They have to, keep this machine going. And if they go into a new building and all of a sudden the Warriors are not as advertised like they were the previous 4 or 5 years, then all of a sudden now, the bloom's off the rose. And I think, everybody, including the organization, has been caught looking down the road. We've got to keep this going because of next year. We've got to keep this going because we're trying to build our legacy. Everybody, the entire National Basketball Association, all 30 of its constituent teams, and every fan is looking ahead to 2020. When you look back at this in 5 years, you will realize how insane this all is and that we are all part of it. And Steve Kerr is caught in the middle of it because he is in many ways an old school guy. I mean, he's a modern coach. He lets players, be players. But he was a guy who would grit his teeth and take the charge and, get into the fight with Michael Jordan because that's what you do. And now he's dealing with a dynamic, and Bob Myers is dealing with a dynamic, and Joe Lacob's dealing with a dynamic in which the immediacy of coaching and playing is almost secondary to our fascination with down the road. And in no other sport is that happening right now. It's not happening in the NFL. I mean, the NFL is classic right now. I mean, the Los Angeles Rams are built for the right now. The Warriors' backstory is what comes after this, because we've already decided that this isn't entertaining enough. We want next, and that's where they're all at. That's where we're all at.
It's tough to argue that in the crucible of a game like Monday, Ray, game on the line, Draymond dribbles it out, and Kevin Durant calls him out for it, and you may say that he might have been a bit too demonstrative, certainly for somebody as potentially sensitive as Draymond Green. And Green's first thought is to go down the road about that decision in the middle of just the heat of the battle in early November. It really is kind of coming from a certain spot that you wouldn't normally expect it to come from.
Well, I mean, look, the Durant Warriors dynamic is an interesting one. It's probably the most interesting thing about them right now, because on the one hand, you've got a number of Warriors who, want to say but haven't. What more do you want? What is it we're not providing you? And talking to Kevin Durant, what is it we're not providing for you that doesn't make you say, it's a no-brainer for me to come back? And Durant is saying without saying it, I want to see what else is out there. I'm curious about what it would be like if I, listen to the Knicks, or if I listen to the Lakers, or I listen to the Phoenix Suns, whatever. And Draymond Green is the guy who says the unpleasant truth, unfiltered, at a loud volume. And he chose the wrong time to do it. He chose the wrong venue to do it. And he chose the wrong way to do it. But this has been kind of a quiet undercurrent that sort of flies in the face of the Warriors' fascination with letting everybody know how everybody gets along so very well every day because they're all united in the pursuit of victory. Well, there's more than victory again. This is about what's coming after this. I mean, they've reached the point where they assume a championship because everybody does. And now they're looking for, well, what's the next fun narrative to chase down? Durant's whereabouts are the next narrative.
Well, I guess in the short term as well, the whereabouts and readiness of Steph Curry would be of interest, certainly, since you'd think that it wouldn't have been Draymond Green dribbling the ball out to start this whole thing off this week if Curry was healthy, and more wins is exactly the deodorant that's required for this sort of thing. What can you tell us about that? Any idea when he comes back?
Well, it looks like it's going to be at least another 10 days to 2 weeks. He's not playing on this road trip. They haven't even said they haven't even given a date for when they're going to reevaluate him. So I think this might be a while. But I think one of the things that's going to happen is that Curry is going to be more sort of present around the team, even though, he doesn't have to be. Because part of why this all blew up, I think a lot of people believe, is because Curry wasn't there on the Monday night. And Curry is the one thing around which everybody can unite, because all the players not only respect him, but love him for the way he has not acted like your standard diva/superstar. And they all recognize that he was the guy who was at Golden State before everybody else. So he's got cachet that nobody else has. And it has not been lost on people that the one night he stayed home is when this blew up. Now, I don't know what he could have done to prevent it, because when Draymond Green wants to say something, he's going to say it. But there's always that backstory that the one thing that keeps this all sort of together more than anything else, of all the things that bind them, the thing that binds them most is Curry. And it's not that they worship him, but they recognize that he's earned that in a way that nobody else the franchise has. I mean, not Kerr, not Myers, not Green, not Thompson. Curry is the core of this all. Mm-hmm. And I think they, if in fact nerves are still frayed, and there's no real way of knowing because they all seemed to play nice last night, except when they actually had to play, that Curry's presence is the one calming influence that that they all agree on. And it's not because they worship him. It's because he's earned it. And the NBA is incredibly hierarchical that way. It's, there are pecking orders for players. And Curry is at the apex. So that when he's around, things are calm because he's the one guy who doesn't insist on his place. They give it to him because he doesn't insist on it. So I think he's not going to play for a while, but I think he's going to be very, very present.
Yeah, and he also exudes joy, which can be contagious, and it's obviously something that's lacking right now in that Warriors team. One last thing for you, Ray. I don't mean to, I guess, I'm not correcting. I'm just adding perspective to what you said about how the NBA is the only spot where the people are looking down the road as opposed to right now, and just in terms of championship teams. Because in the NFL, the Raiders are absolutely looking down the road. I mean, this is a tank job we're seeing right now. Right, Ray?
Well, the players aren't tanking.
That's correct. Neither are the coaches. Neither are the coaches. But
the organization is tunneling toward the Earth's core. And part of the reason why this went so bad so quickly is because John Gruden, the general manager, is every bit as impatient as John Gruden, the coach. And he couldn't wait once he decided this needed to be torn down and rebuilt. He couldn't wait to start. And the players glommed onto that pretty quickly. And they said, okay, none of us are going to be here in a year. We'll give you the 95% that you have to give to keep from getting hurt on any given Sunday, but you're not getting the last 5. I think that he's lost sort of the daily connection with them and they with him, not in a way where they're being insubordinate, but there's just nothing that sort of connects that team except that, man, I can't wait for this to end. And it's not quitting. It's just sort of, not seeing anything at the end of this road except unemployment. And that can be pretty dispiriting in a sport that asks so much of your body. Perfect. And I think that's the biggest problem here. It's that nobody's quit, but they can see the value in quitting. Nobody's given up, but they can see the value in the end of the season. And it's hard to keep the parade going when there's no music.
Ray, love the chats as always. Thanks again. Have a great Thanksgiving.
No, you have a great Thanksgiving.
You bet. That's Ray Ratto at Ratto NBCS.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.